Yes, welcome to the Sports Outlet with Kei-Touch. Today, we're discussing a topic impacting sports, families, young people, the elderly, and communities across the country. Gambling addiction and mental health. Sports betting is everywhere now, from apps on our phones to commercials during every game. Gambling has become deeply connected to sports culture, and now with NIL money, college athletes with access to larger amounts of cash and nonstop betting promotions. And we're entering dangerous territory for many of our young people. Today, I'm just so excited to have Heather Eshleman, Director of Operations, Maryland Center of Excellence on Problem Gambling Helpline 1-800 Gambler. Welcome to the Sports Outlet with Kei-Touch, Heather.
Oh, thank you, Kei-Touch, for having us. This is exciting for us to reach your audience, and I just wish everyone a great Friday and a happy Mother's Day weekend.
Yes, ma'am. And we're talking about gambling. So I'm going to just start off by asking you, what exactly does Maryland Center of Excellence on Problem Gambling provide?
So we are located on Pratt Street in Baltimore, but we do serve the whole state. So we provide the whole continuum of care for problem gambling. So we do public awareness to raise awareness about the risks and the resources for help. We do prevention, where we work with college students and colleges and community organizations that affect people that are at risk of problem gambling, to just give them that education to reach them before they would ever start having a problem. Then we also have intervention, where we do screening tools for people so that they can assess if they may have a problem. And then we also have treatment providers that can provide treatment for those in need and their family members. And then finally, we have peer recovery support, where we have people with lived experience with problem gambling that can take calls from 1-800-GAMBLER and get people to the resources they need for help. So that's in a nutshell what we do.
That's a lot. That's a lot. I was just amazed at everything, all the services that you provide. That's just amazing. So, Heather, why is gambling addiction still so misunderstood? Specifically here in Maryland, we have 6 casinos. And again, with the online sports betting, you can bet on your phone. But why is it misunderstood?
I think a lot of it stems from that it's culturally acceptable, which,
Mhm.
is fine. I think over the years, it's become more socially and culturally acceptable. It's legalized, so people think that something that's legalized is fine, which is generally the case. So we know from doing studies that about 5.7% of Maryland residents will have a gambling disorder. But if you figure the other 94% can gamble and not have a problem, they can totally control the behavior. So most people aren't going to have a problem with gambling. They may have, extend their time limits and their money limits, but they make it put their self back in check. But we're here like for the treatment side for those that would have that extreme uncontrolled gambling. So we know that there's possibility of addiction with gambling. And I think that there is a stigma for seeking help too. Just like with any mental health condition, we are getting better at that. I even go into high schools and talks to students. It's not the same generation as when I was growing up. People didn't talk about mental health 30 years ago. Now you go into a classroom and kids are checking in with each other and making sure that they're looking out for each other as far as like their mental health. So I think that that's come a long way.
And let's just say this: May is Mental Health Awareness Month. If you or someone you know needs help here in Maryland, helpmygamblingproblem.org, helpmygamblingproblem.org. And you can also follow them on Instagram at MDCEPG MCEPG. That is on IG. Heather.
Yes.
So, explain how gambling creates emotional highs similar to substance addiction. And it's interesting because we're talking about this as far as mental health. We're talking about this in relation to how substance abusers are impacted similarly to people with gambling addictions. This is just really interesting, new territory for me, absolutely, because I never thought it was really a big issue. I knew some people had issues, but never really thought gambling addiction was that huge.
Well, Kei-Touch, we appreciate you highlighting this issue because, as you just admitted, a lot of people don't think about gambling as being a problem. So we need to raise awareness about the potential harms. Basically, how it relates to substance use is that for a while, gambling disorder wasn't even really identified as a mental health disorder. And now, within the DSM-5, which is the statistical or the manual for those that are therapists out there, that they classify mental health disorders, they now have substance use and gambling disorder within the same category because they have similar types of diagnoses and just signs and symptoms, that they group them together. And the reason for that is because what happens when you have an addiction is whatever is causing that addiction, the dopamine in your brain increases. And then it's very difficult for the brain to control whatever that behavior or the substances that someone is ingesting or shooting up or whatever it is, how they're administering whatever they're addicted to. Now, here's the issue with gambling. With gambling, you're not physically ingesting, snorting, injecting anything, right? So it's all behavioral. So a lot of times with the gambling, people are stimulated by the sounds, the sights, the lights, all the action. And it's actually the excitement of a potential win that causes the addiction. So basically, someone could win money. And the reason why they don't stop after they've won money is because they're addicted to that high of the potential of winning more. So basically, substance use and gambling really have a lot of similarities, but that main difference is with substance use, you're taking something physically into your body, whereas with gambling, it's totally behavioral. So I think that's why it's more difficult for people to accept that it actually is an addiction. But it's been studied, and it clearly is a mental health disorder.
Wow, it's just amazing. And information is power. If you don't know, you can't grow and you can't help others. So, what are some of the warning signs if you want to help your friends and family? And I'm sure a lot of people with this problem try to be secretive, but what are some of the signs that you can look for with somebody with a gambling addiction? And I'm talking about particularly when we're talking about using your phone to place bets and sports betting. What, not physically going to a casino? How would I know?
How would you know? Well, obviously, we don't often look over somebody's shoulder and see what they're doing on their phone, correct?
Mhm.
So
Right.
I think what you would probably hear or see is somebody on their phone maybe more often than they used to be, and they'll be checking stats. So maybe you'll see them checking stats, or they'll be on those platforms such as FanDuel and DraftKings and looking at, their odds, and they'll be researching their odds. So they're spending a lot of time doing this activity, and it's taking away from things in their life to make it balanced. So it's causing a problem in the home or at work because the person becomes very obsessed with uh, checking the odds and just on gambling activities in general. So basically, that's a huge warning sign, is that lack of control to stop the behavior.
Mm.
And then, similar to substance use, you're going to see a tolerance that's built up. So basically, someone that starts to bet may be satisfied with like a $5 bet at first. But if it starts to escalate to a problem for them, they're starting to bet more and more money, like hundreds or thousands of dollars. We hear calls, people calling in that, last night I lost $3,000 or sometimes even more.
Mm.
So that's what causes them to call in oftentimes. But you see this tolerance of, it's just not enough for them to bet the $5 anymore. They have to bet more and more to kind of get that high. So that's another warning sign. And then really, the gambling could start to cause other mental health problems like depression and anxiety. So basically, someone that's gambling a lot could become depressed or anxious because they know it's taking control of their life, but they don't seem to be able to stop it. So that's another thing that can happen. And then it just impacts the home, the family, um, marriages. And so they're not spending the time with their, in relationships that they're supposed to be. So that makes it really tough to maintain close relationships. And oftentimes there's arguments in the home. There could be domestic violence, child maltreatment. Gambling problems are really linked to a lot of social problems, even bankruptcies and poverty, homelessness. So it's kind of a bigger picture than a lot of people think. It does impact the public health a lot in our communities. And I think overall, if you look at what a gambling problem is, it's really the time and money. So if somebody's overspending or they're spending too much time, that's really going to negatively impact a person's life. So I think that's where you kind of have to, judge if someone has a problem or not.
Wow. And it's just a lot. Like you said, you're not constantly looking over someone's shoulder. You don't know what they're necessarily doing on their phone. It's different if they're running to the casino every night or something like that. But with it being on the phone and being on an app, I can see that being more of a challenge. And you kind of touched on some of the worst things that can happen, from poverty to homelessness. What is the worst thing you've seen, or worst impact you've seen on someone's life because of
I
gambling?
think financial devastation.
Mhm.
We actually testify on bills in Annapolis over the legislative session, and we
Wow.
bring our people in recovery to speak to our legislators because they need to hear the problems they're having. But we had one individual that testified this session. He had lost $1 million and he was embezzling money from his business. So I am hopeful that he was an older gentleman. So I'm hoping that he will find some kind of positive things in his life to kind of find a way to give back in a positive way all that the harms that he caused to his family and to his business. But testifying was huge for him because it gave him a voice. So I think that you hear these personal stories of people, whether it be a college student that's like gambling their college tuition money, or because sometimes they just give you the money up front in college, and then it's tempting because there's a lot of advertising that is seen by a lot of our college age students, and so they kind of get hooked in with the free bets, like they're offering all this free money. And so I think they're vulnerable. And then you just see people in general, like um, families like that. We have a peer recovery support specialist at our center who was addicted to the online games and, started to neglect her children. So, I think that You really have a different story for everyone. But I think
Mhm.
it's that financial devastation that probably is the biggest one that had people call in for help.
And just like you mentioned with the older gentleman, you said that he started embezzling money from his company. So you have this addiction that is causing you to commit a crime. So it's I see that similarity with drugs. When people are addicted to drugs, they'll steal, commit crimes so they can have that fix. And that's essentially what it is. It's a fix. Wow. Um,
Exactly.
do you think more people are struggling silently because gambling is so socially accepted? I mean, you have concerts at casinos, different artists do residencies out in Vegas, and it's just a fun trip, something to do. Go into the casinos, you see the grandparents in the casinos. So, do you think that's why people may not seek help because they may not even think they have a problem, or it's just socially accepted?
I think that's exactly how it is. And I feel like, if you have 90% of the population that can control it, if you're in that small minority, you're going to be embarrassed and you're going to be stigmatized and feel like you can't go out for help. Similar to an alcoholic. If you think about alcohol, alcohol is also a legal substance and gambling's legal. Most people can drink a glass or two of alcohol and stop, but then you got that small percentage of people that can't. And why do people that are alcoholics not seek help either? Because they just don't want to admit that they're out of control, or they feel like they're embarrassing their families, or it's a weakness to reach out for help. But the days are changing. For any addiction or mental health disorder, people should reach out for help now, because it's really a strength now, and you can get to a better place. Recovery is real. And we're proud of individuals that we know that have either worked with us or currently work at the center to help others access recovery, because they are turning their addiction and recovery into something that's helping others. And that's like something to be congratulated, because it's not easy to put yourself out there and tell your story. But it makes a huge difference for others. It destigmatizes people to access help, because if they know other people are in a similar situation and got help, they're more likely to reach out for help too.
Again, we're talking to Heather Eshleman. We're just happy to have her today, Director of Operations, Maryland Center of Excellence on Problem Gambling. Call 1 800 Gambler. That's the helpline for them, 1 800 Gambler. So, Heather, we've gone from sports gambling being hidden to you having to find you a loan shark or something like that to it being marketed every day during commercials, marketing campaigns. Even I see ads when I'm playing games on my phone. We're just in a whole new world. So, one other thing that's changing is college sports, NIL. We have younger people having access to a large amounts of money. Does having access to larger amounts of money create more gambling risk for young athletes? It creates a lot of risk, but gambling.
Yeah, I would say it would. Yeah, Kei-Touch. I think that, um, yes, young people definitely need to have some financial literacy classes so that they understand what to do with this large amount of money coming in. But yeah, it definitely could put them at risk, just because, I mean, if they're an athlete in college, though, they are not able, through the NCAA, they're not able to gamble. It's illegal for them. But of course, people do get around the rules at times. But I think the biggest issues we're seeing with student athletes in particular is they might be tempted to throw the game, if someone
Mm.
pays them even more money, right? So that's some of the things you might be seeing in the news, with athletes are willing to take payouts to throw the game in a certain way. And then
Mm.
you also have student athletes that may get harassed on social media because a game didn't go the way that somebody placed a bet on them. and maybe they got injured in the game, or like they were unaware of the athlete, but then they get harassed on social media because this person lost a lot of money. So I mean, it's the large sums of money are concerning, I think, and that, yeah, you don't know what they'll do with that money.
You don't know. It's a lot of risk
Hopefully,
with the money.
yeah, hopefully they'll save it for like something that's productive, right? A house or a car. But basically, I feel for student athletes these days because there are so many issues around gambling that could potentially be harmful for them. And like you said, the heavy advertising is really targeting that age group. So it's tough for them to resist, like, bet $5 and get 300 in free bets, right? I mean, it's hard for anybody to resist free money. So I think that, and they're like, if they have that pot of money that they have, right? They're probably going to be like, oh, well, if I lose some, it's not going to be a big deal. I've got the money, right? And sometimes the gambling world, it almost seems like it's the cool thing to do, right? Because I'm popular and I'm just I've made it. I've made it. So gambling is kind of part of that image. But it really can be a slippery slope, and quickly, because of, like you mentioned, with the online, you can place bets, all kinds of micro bets within a game. So it's not just win or loss anymore of the game. It's, who's going to get the next 3-point shot in basketball? Who's going to get the next touchdown? What color is the Gatorade, that they're going to throw on the coach's head after Super Bowl? I mean, there's just all kinds of micro bets within the game. So it makes it faster paced, and then you can rack up more debt a lot quicker.
Hmm. So, are you seeing younger callers struggling financially because they started gambling early with sports betting apps? Is that one of the main ones?
We're getting a large increase of calls since sports betting legalized, from young people and their parents, because yes, they're just betting huge amounts of money, and they go down quick. Yeah, so it's just it's sad. It's sad to see. And we actually have another person in recovery that, we've been putting them on panels, like, to get up and learn to talk about their story. And we had one student athlete come in the other day, and he was having major foot pain. So here's another thing when we're talking about student athletes, right? If they're transitioning out of sport, because, their career is changing, or, they're only going to play in high school, not in college, or they're playing in college, but once they get out of college, they're not going professional. So basically, transition in sport is another time where people need to pay attention to potential coping mechanisms that may not be positive, such as gambling or alcohol or drugs. But we had a young man that we work with a lot, and he had a sports injury. So it kind of ended his career abruptly. And so he started gambling to cope with that. And it got out of control. I mean, just major lying to his parents, lots of money just being borrowed from people that he never paid back. And then in multiple bookies he had, or multiple platforms open on, betting. And so it just spiraled out of control for him. But I'm happy to say he's in recovery now. He's going down the right path. But yeah, you got to hit the rock bottom too, similar to substance use. Someone has to want to accept the help and realize that it's gotten so out of control that they need to call for help.
Wow. And we have all these vulnerable communities. And one that I'm a part of is I'm an Army veteran. And I know just from personal experience, overseas, you have a lot of slot machines on post in the bowling alleys. And I saw a lot of people with that addiction on the 1st and the 15th. That was our paydays. They would put their entire check into a slot machine. They wouldn't leave until it was done. And it was just really sad to see that. So I wanted to ask you, like, why are active duty military and veterans particularly vulnerable to gambling addiction?
That's a great question, and I appreciate your observations. At the national level, we've been actually trying to work with Congress to limit those machines that are on bases overseas. You don't have them here in the United States.
No.
And basically, they're to raise money for further recreational activities, which is great. They want to do recreational activities, but do you want to have someone develop a gambling disorder because there's a slot machine right there? But at any rate, back to your question. So why are veterans and active military more at risk? Well, one, kind of personality type, I'd say. They're more used to being competitive and kind of being in that line of fire and like just reactionary and just ready to act, right? So it's almost like a personality where if they like something or start doing something, they might not be able to stop, right? So it's kind of like that stimulation of the brain in a crisis mode could almost be similar to like that dopamine hit, right? That they're getting. So they're fight or flight, right? They're just ready to go. So that could put them at greater risk and that kind of competitiveness that they may have. In addition, if they're away from family, away from their home, they might gamble just to kind of calm their mind. A lot of times there could be, negative coping strategies that people start to develop if they're not careful. And gambling can be one of them because, like you said, people may not even know that it could become an addiction. So they might start playing the slots because they think it's fun or they think that it's kind of calming their mind, but then it turns into something else. So I think they're at risk because they're away from home and they're away from everything they know. And then, of course, the military culture is kind of like suck it up, right? Like just do what you need to do what you're told, stay within the rules. And so when it comes to gambling, if they kind of start, they're, they don't have a way to express themselves is what I'm saying. And maybe the gambling is something that they feel they can control and do for fun. It's an outlet, but it could become more. So there's a couple, that's kind of some of the reasons why I think that active military may be at greater risk than some of the other populations. And then I think, it really is tough with the mental health too, because they see traumatic situations and they may have PTSD. And again, they may be turning to gambling to cope. So, yeah. So that could be part of the problem there.
Well, I feel like the casinos heavily target the military and veteran population because, like, I went to MGM just a couple of weeks ago. And when I went to get a card, they was like, yeah, we have a military card because they saw on my ID that I was a veteran. And it's a distinct card from the others and it has perks. And I was like, wow, there's like, yeah, you can get a discount in the food court, you get this, you get that. And I said, this is really a target for veterans and active duty military. And as we know, in Maryland, there are a lot of military people here, whether they're attached to a base or assigned to a base or the Pentagon, White House, or any other of these facilities here in the DC region. And so I just wanted to know, what resources do you have for veterans and active duty in this area to help them out with this problem before it gets all the way out of hand?
We have plenty of resources for active military veterans and even just the general public. But like you're saying, when it comes to the casinos, we work a lot with casinos on responsible gambling. So we help to train their employees so that they can also recognize signs of someone with a gambling disorder. But when we think about them, they often are targeting their best customers. So if someone, if there's a military base nearby, they're trying to get the customers to come in, not really thinking that they're at greater risk, but they target senior citizens with bus trips too. So you kind of got to think about the marketing and what you're seeing when it comes to marketing. But when we look at resources for help for active duty military and also veterans, we have some counselors across the state that specialize in military problem gambling treatment that we can link people to. We also provide trainings on the association between gambling and the military. So we definitely can provide presentations to staff. I know in the past we've actually have trained the counselors, like at Fort Meade and at different bases, and had them collaborate with us. There is awareness at the federal level that they should be providing those kinds of services. And basically, it is the behavioral health system in Maryland is who we train. So basically, our substance use disorder and our mental health counselors can be trained to become a problem gambling counselor. So it's a similar with all the military counselors as well. They can definitely take the training and kind of add it to their repertoire. They can bill for no cost treatment, which is amazing because here in Maryland, because of the Problem Gambling Fund, which was established back in like 2010, due to the licensing fees of the casinos, there was a fund established to pay for treatment for anyone in need at no cost for themselves and their family members. So all they would have to do is call 1-800-GAMBLER and ask for treatment. And knowing that they probably don't have the money to pay for it, it's free here in the state. So that's a great service that at least when the casinos came to Maryland, they did establish that. And then also 1-800-GAMBLER, it's 24 hours, 7 days a week, call, text, or chat. You'll get a live person who will respond, and they can just talk to you. If it's about yourself or a family member, they can offer you plenty of resources. So they'll offer you treatment. They'll offer you a peer recovery support specialist, so someone who have lived experience to talk to kind of get to you to encourage you to access some of the resources. They can tell you about Gamblers Anonymous meetings that are taking place in the community or through online that you can access. They'll tell you about Parents Place of Maryland, who is an organization that specifically helps family members of those with substance use disorders, mental health disorders, and gambling disorders. So they're there to kind of be that family link to help the family member to feel like they're not alone and to access resources. But there's just so many free resources that we encourage people to reach out. And the 1-800-GAMBLER is really the single best place to start.
1-800-GAMBLER. Thank you, Heather Eshleman, Director of Operations, Maryland Center of Excellence on Problem Gambling Helpline, 1-800-GAMBLER. So I want to go back to something that you said. You were training a lot of the casino workers. And I was thinking about at a bar, if you have too many drinks, they have to stop or they can get sued. And that's only because you'll go out and potentially hurt yourself and someone else. It's unfortunate because we don't see anyone stopping people from gambling in the casino. There's no limit unless their debit card has a limit on what they can take out. It was just a thought that came to my mind. And I want to transition to another vulnerable community, the elderly. I mean, ever since, I don't know, even the old movie Casino from the early 90s, you saw elderly people in there. That's just been something, they do at the nursing homes. They take them on trips to the casino. Are we know, I was going to say, are they becoming increasingly vulnerable targets? I know that, but does the loneliness and isolation possibly contribute to their gambling addictions, especially those in the nursing homes?
Yeah, 100%. I don't think we're really getting people that are of senior age using the phone apps so much.
Right,
To
right.
that age, not so much. It doesn't really entice them. But the free bus trips out of senior centers, yeah, they really enjoy those. And a lot of it is because with physical limitations that the older population have, they can still gamble. They can hop on a bus. They can just, a lot of times, like you said, they're giving them free incentives. The bus is free. You'll get a free meal. You'll get free play card. So they're really trying to get them in there. And they're the ones that are available during the day, right? They're retired, so they can go and take these bus trips. What we're seeing as far as the data, a lot of our seniors are very frugal. So they tend to have better control than the young people over the money that they spend. But it doesn't mean that addiction doesn't happen for our older people too. Again, when people are in transition, say maybe they lost a loved one through death, or they had to move their home, or they retired, these life-changing transitions put people vulnerable for addictive disorders. So that's kind of like a time where we need to watch people. But basically, yeah, when the seniors go to the casino, they're kind of treated like royalty. And they're like, oh, let me go get you a drink. Oh, they'll bring things to them. They don't even have to get up. And then there's superstitions a lot among the elderly, and that you see, oh, I can't leave my seat right now because
Yeah.
this machine's going to get lucky for me. So there's some, I guess, superstitious types of things that you see. Um, but yeah, going back to like the casinos and education, they're trying their best. They are out to make money. We know that that's their goal, and they're making money for Maryland good causes. They are. There's a lot of things that the money goes to, our schools and different things. But basically, the way they can tell that somebody is having trouble with their gambling is if they start getting angry at the machine, or they're
Oh,
getting distressed, right? So we try to train them on encouraging people to take a break. And that's true for the mobile apps too. I think that if people see someone getting so obsessive about following the odds with sports betting, like they should just say, you need to take a break from that and see if that works. We know taking a break from something is like the first step to kind of reassess if it's really a problem, or if like they just need that break to kind of reset.
mm,
So we encourage people to do that.
wow. So we're talking about Maryland casinos. They have 6 major ones: MGM National Harbor, Live, Maryland Live Casino and Hotel, Horseshoe Casino in Baltimore, Hollywood Casino in Perryville, Ocean Downs Casino, and Rocky Gap Casino Resort. I actually only knew previously about 3 of these. I didn't know we had 6. So has accessibility become the biggest challenge now here
Um,
in Maryland?
yeah, everyone is within probably a half hour or an hour drive of a casino. So if they choose not to do mobile gambling, mobile sports betting on their phones, they can go to a casino, and most of them have sports betting. 5 out of
Yeah.
6 have the sports betting. One good thing about the casino is that it is more of a social activity versus when you're just hiding it on your phone, right? But
Mhm.
yeah, accessibility has increased as the first casino came to Maryland in 2010. My daughter is in 10th grade, and she was born in 2010. So our high school students are the first generation to grow up with gambling in their backyard, like casinos in their backyard. And we know that research shows that if you have a casino close to your home within like a couple mile radius, you're more likely to have a gambling disorder because you see it all the time. People talk about it. People are more likely to go there if it's close by. So basically, yeah, the accessibility is there. You don't have to fly to Las Vegas anymore. You don't have to drive up to Atlantic City anymore. Like, it's just right here at home. And we do work with the casinos, and they're very receptive to try to make things better. They definitely want people to enjoy their experience. They don't want the people that are, the 5% that are have a gambling disorder. They definitely don't want them to cause harm to their families. So we try to work with them on that. And but yeah, sometimes it does go under the radar, and you can't see signs that someone has a problem. So it's difficult.
But if you do see signs, what should you do?
So again, I would say just the first place is to call 1-800-GAMBLER. Now, the casinos and the sports books have the number on their platforms. It's on the cash machines. It's at the place where you cash in your winnings, the cashier's office at the casinos, also on every slot machine. So, they're trying to promote it too. So, yeah, the single most important way to access any services really is 1-800-GAMBLER. And they can tell you where all the Gamblers Anonymous meetings are too. I mean, we update that with them all the time. So we're constantly updating all the resources.
So, if, as a friend or family member, you should reach out to try to help your loved one, or is that just for the person?
No, you as a family member, you can receive free counseling as well.
Oh,
And yeah, you can reach out for help just to talk to someone. There's GAM Anon for family members, similar to how they have Naranon for for people addicted to drugs, family members.
mhm.
And like I mentioned, the Parents Place in Maryland also have family members that have people with either gambling disorders, mental health, substance use. So they've been there having a family member struggle, and they can also help people. And they're accessed through 1-800-GAMBLER as well.
All right. And so, with that, can you explain like inpatient versus outpatient treatment for recovery options? Just curious about what that looks like. Is that similar to what occurs with alcoholics or drug abusers, any other addiction recovery program?
It is very similar. So inpatient would be someone that it's an extreme case and they really want to get away from everything. So for 28 days, they would be able to get inpatient treatment. And there are across the country some for gambling disorder alone, but mostly in Maryland, there's some beds in the inpatient treatment centers that also see people with substance use disorders. So they can go there for free, from the Problem Gambling Fund if they have a gambling disorder. Outpatient treatment would be similar as well to the drug treatment. So people are seeing their counselors either once a week or whatever they're recommended to do. And that's billed also. The counselor bills the Problem Gambling Fund and get reimbursed for those services at no cost to the person seeking help. So again, it's really great access to treatment here in Maryland at no cost.
It's free. It is
It is
free
free.
here in Maryland. And just lastly, Heather, what do you say to someone too embarrassed to ask for help, too ashamed to ask for help? What do you say to them?
So I would just say call the helpline. It's no obligation. So you can just call and ask for a resource, or you can just call and say, I'm not sure if my gambling's out of control. And it's sometimes people want harm reduction, which is they just want to cut back. And it's a person's personal journey of whether in their decision of whether they want to just cut back or stop gambling completely. We can help them with either. But basically, I think calling and talking to someone to kind of define the extensiveness of the problem. Sometimes people can just create a spreadsheet and track their wins and losses and how much money they're spending, and then they can kind of see patterns.
Okay.
But so that's something I recommend too. So I think that calling to talk to someone, though, is never a bad idea. They're not going to make you go to treatment. They just want to hear what your concerns are. And the people are super friendly that pick up the helpline, and a lot of times have that lived experience, or they'll send you to someone with lived experience that can tell you, oh, I was there too, and this is how you get to a better place.
And let's talk about why that's so important, that peer experience, having someone who's been down that same terrible hole, that darkness and that addiction, to be there to answer the phone or help those seeking treatment for their gambling addiction.
So another thing is, yeah, so a lot of times, unfortunately, those with the gambling disorder will have thoughts of suicide because they're in such great debt, and or their family members is causing so much harm. They just think it would be best to end it all. And many of the people that work at the center that take the calls have been there themselves and have had thoughts of suicide. So I think that that's kind of the rock bottom a lot of times for people. But if you can see that someone else had a really rough time, like you were saying earlier, either they committed a crime due to their gambling, or they got divorced, or they lost a home, and they were able to come back and make a better life, it just shows that person that they can do that too. And that's just so important. Like, I could talk to anybody. I've never had a gambling disorder, so I can encourage people, but I can't say I did it myself. There's a difference there. So, yeah, I mean, it's amazing what these peers do. Like, they'll just put their whole, story out there, and people are like, oh, wow, it just touches their heart. And they're like, I can do this too.
And I just want to put this out. Call or text 988. That's the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. And it's okay not to be okay. The important thing is recognizing that you have the challenge and seeking the help you need. We know a lot of people in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area have good jobs, have access to income. We have these casinos. You may be going through something. You may be suffering from depression or anxiety or something, and go to the casino, and then it gets out of control. But it's okay not to be okay. There's help. Call 1-800-GAMBLER if you're here in Maryland for help. And you can always call or text 988. That is the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Both of these are 24/7. You don't have to go through this alone. Any closing thoughts, Heather? You've been great, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it, Kei-Touch. And then I guess I would just like to say, have the conversation with a loved one. We don't always ask about gambling, but if you're seeing somebody gambling on the phone or more often, just ask them, open a conversation in a non-judgmental way with a calm voice, and just say, do you think that the gambling's negatively impacting your life? Is it causing you problems? That's kind of a way to open it up. And a lot of times people will talk. So just acknowledge it if you're seeing it.
Yes, and I just wanted to go ahead and put out the National Gambling Addiction Hotline, 1-800-MY-RESET, 1-800-MY-RESET. So anyone who is having issues, please call.
Yes.
Please call. And thank you so much, Heather Eshleman. Eshleman, Director of Operations, Maryland Center of Excellence on Problem Gambling, 1-800-GAMBLER. That is the helpline. Thank you again for sharing all the information. And the biggest takeaway from Maryland residents, The help is absolutely free. There is no excuse to suffer. And this helps the family members too. So just reach out to 1-800 Gambler or helpmygamblingproblem.org. These are easy. This is an easy website, an easy phone number. Seek the help you need. And again, text or call 988 if you are in a crisis or thinking about suicide. It's okay not to be okay. Take care of yourself. It's the Sports Outlet with Kei-Touch. Thank you so much again, Heather. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Kei-Touch. I appreciate you too. You do an amazing job.
Thank you.
I love your enthusiasm.